Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, Not Quite Strangers. My name is Valerie Hope, and I am your host. As usual, every session, we have a couple of people who don't know each other that well that we bring together. And the hopes of this podcast is to inspire curiosity, to support in establishing connection and shifting our perspective on things. And today's not going to be any different. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce my guest to you. But if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, please do so you don't miss a single episode. And more importantly, give us your comments or questions about anything that you heard that was inspiring to you or even challenging to you. And like, favorite, or rate us in any of your favorite podcast platforms. Now, for my special guests. Today, these two ladies in red, which I got to admit, I was a little jealous because I didn't get their memo and I'm the host. I didn't tell them to wear red, but I almost considered changing. Even during a little break, I was like, I should change. But now I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that to them. This is not authentic. So I'll start off by introducing you, Heidi. Heidi, you and I just met recently, actually. So I guess in October, you and I work together. I'm your coach, actually, through one of the programs. And I'll tell you the moment that our first session, we had our first session last month, or back in October, we talked about your background and you'd mentioned a couple of things about your experience in the military. And I'm like, you were in the military? What? And also some of the things that you've been learning. And I was like, you need to be on my podcast. Oh my gosh. And I know exactly who I'm going to introduce you to. So beyond the military connection, there's a lot of other things that I saw. And we're not going to share anything from the coaching session. At least I won't. But Heidi, feel free to share anything that you feel comfortable sharing. So I just want to make sure confidentiality does live on, even here.
Thank you, Valerie.
Of course. And then Patricia, I was like, I knew that Heidi needed to meet you, Patricia. You and I have known each other for almost a year. No,
a little more.
We met in February. Two? No.
Yeah.
Really?
It's almost 2 years now. It was pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID?
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. We met at the HR conference in San Antonio.
Yeah. So it was, well, I guess it wouldn't actually be pre-COVID, but
no, that was that 2022?
It was
21.
21, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah, it was 21.
All right, so we go back a year.
Go way back. A year. Yeah, I've lost track. Yeah.
So here's this is the interesting thing. So I was one of the speakers at this conference. And before my turn came to go to do my talk, someone introduced us. Patricia, you were kind of walking around or talking to one of the organizers or something. And I went up to check on some information and, oh, you need to meet Patricia. So you and I met, had some conversation. I can't remember even what the conversation was, but you weren't even going to stay in my session. You were going to go somewhere else. Because there was all these concurrent.
You were not on my agenda.
So I was like, okay, fine. And go to some other concurrent session. And somehow you ended up staying in the session. And then from there, we had a conversation. And not only that, so this was like a moment in time, right? Like a day workshop, and we saw each other about the session. And then Heidi, get this, Patricia and I sat next to each other on an airplane flying from Philadelphia to Dallas. I know. Southwest Airlines, so there were no assigned seats. And I was like, oh, middle seat open. So I asked if I could sit there, and we had the mask we had our masks on. So, and I just, and just seeing a couple of things, I'm like, I feel like I know this person. Why do I know this person? Yeah, so we're all like this with our masks. I'm like, why do I know this person? And I was like, do I know you? And she's like, you look familiar to me too. And so we like lowered our masks. I'm like,
that's funny. Right. The big reveal. Right. That's so funny. It was meant to be.
It was so funny. It was, because we had a really awesome conversation, which brings me to now the two of us or three of us having this conversation in this moment. I always ask my guests, besides the fact that I invited you, why did you say yes to having a conversation with a stranger on a podcast?
Oh, wow. Good question.
Well, I think I said yes because of you and who you are, and I feel very comfortable with you. And I knew that you would put me in a comfortable situation.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I might surprise
you. What's that?
So maybe I'll surprise you today.
Yeah, well, that's a possibility.
No.
And I agree with you totally, Patricia. Like, same thing. It's because of Valerie, and there's just so much immediate trust in you. And I think your intention is so pure. And it's so funny. I think the conversation I've had about you in my head is, even though your last name is Hope, I almost think like your middle name is Joy. Like, you just create you have just this wonderful energy, and I want to be a part of it. So happy to just be in your presence and to get to know Patricia more.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you all. That's so lovely. My mom has told me in the past, she said, why do you ask that question? You're asking for people to say nice things about you. Is that why you ask?
Come on, Mom.
No,
Come
Mom.
on.
I do not expect them to say something nice, because I asked, why did you say yes to the opportunity? Not why did people say yes to me?
Right.
But thank you. So see there, Mom. So let me ask you this. Now that I shared a little bit about how I met the two of you and what I may have seen that would be a helpful point to connect, what questions have you been wondering about the other person? Like, what's kind of been curious about this?
Yeah.
Well, that is a good question. I guess I was actually thinking, okay, well, will Heidi and I have anything to talk about? Will our conversation click? Will I say something, I guess, that you have experienced, or how will we find the common ground?
Yeah.
But that was just initially, and then it just kind of all went away, as we got closer to the engagement, because like you said, Heidi, I just knew that Valerie would do a good fit, do a good match. And, like we saw initially, we both came on with the red shirts.
Already from the jump, we know it's going to be
From
good.
the jump, yeah.
It's all me. It was my setting the intention and sending out to the universe, whoever comes on must match.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just really curious about, your story, Patricia, and just getting to know you, and curious as well about where the connections are, because I'm sure there are plenty, and just hearing how we've navigated through life, what's ahead of us, and how we can even support one another in this space. So
yeah, I agree, Heidi. I agree.
Okay, well, more to come. So
you got your hands like, she's getting serious. Yeah.
Well, so here's one of the main things that made me go, was Patricia, when you and I met during that HR conference, one of the things that you said to me after my talk, right? So in the talk, I was really focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I shared some stories about my background and travel, and et cetera. And you told me that you were retired from the Army.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, wow, cool. An officer retired from the Army. And you were telling me about all the things that you've been doing. And then Heidi, when you said that you were also in the military, I was like, there's a military connection. And then some of the themes of the types of conversations that I've had with each of you around what it means to be a strong woman who have been in spaces that required a lot of responsibility, that required a level of gravitas, right?
Yes.
That I thought, man, that might be really interesting to think about what impact that has post-military. I'm not in the military. I've never been in the military, but my father was in the military for 27 years. He was in the Army. I have a brother who's a Marine. We basically grew up being in the military family as if we were in the military.
Yes.
Because my parents raised us like that. So let's start from the very beginning. Tell us what branch of the military, why you got in to begin with, and how long you were there.
Yeah.
Heidi, why don't you start out?
I'd love to start. And I'm very proud of the fact that my military experience started as a dependent. So my father was in the Army. He served in the Army. I was born in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and then moved
Wow.
everywhere. And that experience really shaped me in terms of being comfortable with change, just loving people, meeting people. And I had a really great opportunity where I received an ROTC scholarship to attend college at Duke University and got a full
Wow.
ride. So that was just huge for my family, being the first to graduate from college. And it just opened up a lot of doors. So the military has really served as an opportunity for our family and has really built this common thread of public service for us as a pathway for families. And so then I served in the Air Force as an officer, and I was in logistics and have plenty of
Wow.
stories to tell from that experience. And then now as a professional, one of our core clients continues to be the defense sector, supporting change and transformation through the defense and public sector. So I'll always feel like there's a commitment to give back to my community and through public service. So that's been one of the themes and how the military continues to stay in my life.
Wow.
Therefore.
Wow, Heidi. Yeah, that's interesting because we have, more in common now that you, answered that question. I was like, wow, we have a lot in common. We ended up in similar paths, but we took different courses and directions to get there. So for me, I ended up in the Army because of a financial need. Yeah, so when I went to school, I joined ROTC, but not because I wanted to be in the Army, because I needed the financial stipend. Yeah, and back then it was just $100 a month. So it's grown by leaps and bounds since then.
Yes.
Yeah. So I ended up joining ROTC and got a commission in the Army Medical Department.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was a strategic planner, medical operations officer. But I have to admit, I had a great time. I enjoyed the ride, but it was some ebbs and flows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some bumps along the way, but I'm glad I stuck in there to the end and gained a lot of valuable experience, exposed to different cultures. As you said, understanding change and managing change and creating change. Yeah. So my family too had to deal with the change, and I think it was a great experience for them, even though neither one of my sons wanted to pursue a military career. So now that I've retired, I've gone on to corporate America and some consulting, and now I'm like you in the defense and public sectors doing change management, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's what really initially attracted me to Valerie when she said that's what she did, that's what she enjoyed. So that created the connection. Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's all becoming clear now, Valerie.
Another layer revealed. Oh, Pat, that's really interesting. Yeah, when I heard both of you shared this moment of the military experience that you've had and how that's kind of influenced and colored your path, I'm like, oh, that's fascinating, especially women officers, right? How long were we both in, by the way?
I did 22 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and I served a little over 4 years, so I completed my commission.
Okay, gotcha. Yes.
Very cool. No, that's fascinating. So yeah, so what's coming up for you now that you guys have heard each other share about your military experience? What questions have come up about that, or something else perhaps that you heard or interested in?
Well, let's see. So Heidi,
yes,
you said you were Air Force and you were in logistics. Okay, so I did a contract years ago with AFMOA, Air Force, what is it, Medical Operations Agency. And we had to do some work with AFMISA, I think, is the logistics arm of the Air Force. And I just saw the way they managed logistics. There's a whole bunch of similarities, you know, because it's all supplies.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, you know, we create these differences because branches of services are different, but the functions are really, the processes are really the same. Yeah, would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, the differences in the services is based on, you know, the culture and the ultimate mission, but, you know, the end goal is the same. So I definitely agree with you. And, you know, even coming from a dependent in the Army, it was very easy to then serve in the Air Force because, you know, it was my experience that when you're in a military community, there's just so much care for the people who serve either on active duty or, you know, the spouses and the family members that are serving in their own way.
Yes.
And that's something, you know, I talk to my kids about when we think about taking care of the other, you know, being a good community member, you know, checking in on people who might be a little bit more quiet, because that's how it was for me in the military. You know, we left our doors open, you know, we just checked in with each other when someone was deployed. You know, you're given food, you know, bring family members over to the house. So that sense of community was just so important. And I'm so grateful to have had that experience as a child, but then even as an adult too, in the time that I served, that was so important.
Yeah.
Where are you guys from? Where are you from?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
From Philly. Yeah. Yeah, that's always a tricky question for me because
military background.
Yeah. So you know, I was born in Kentucky, but we moved all over. So my father is a Black American, my mother's Korean. And so when he was stationed at Korea, he met her. And then you know, eventually I came along, but moved all over, and then now live in the DC area. This has been almost 22 years now. It's the longest I've ever lived in one area.
Wow.
Sometimes I'll still get that urge, like, okay, isn't it time to move now? Like,
right? I'm same here. I've been in Dallas for 22 years, and it's like, how am I still here? This is the longest I've lived anywhere. And granted, my dad joined the military when he was 34, which I don't think they even allow you that anymore to get that. Yeah, he was much older. He was senior at the time. And we immigrated from Panama to the States. But we were already, I was in third grade or something like that when he joined. And because we were older too, and you know, we weren't born into it. My mom had her reservations about traveling as much. So we only had maybe like 4 duty stations that we followed my dad. And then the rest of the time, by the time we got to high school, my mom was like, yeah, we're not going to do that to the kids. So he would go, he went to Korea for a couple of years. He went to Panama, he went to Colombia, and then he would come back. But I have sometimes felt that sense of, okay, next. And even after graduating from college, I worked with an organization that had me living out of a suitcase. And so I was traveling all the time then too. And so staying put, you know, I always say home is wherever my stuff is.
That's right. That's right.
Wherever my stuff, right?
Yeah, that is right.
Well, I can't say that because I have stuff all over the place.
Are you leaving all your stuff behind? Where do you have stuff?
Well, still have stuff in New Jersey where my brother is, not a whole lot, but just some stuff that belonged to my parents. Yeah. And both of them are deceased. So just, you know, family treasures, heirlooms that my brother holds on to, you know, stuff in storage that I need to clean up and get rid of because they keep raising the rate. You know, that's really a racket when you have a storage facility.
I know.
They hold you hostage. So yeah. So here in San Antonio, I've been here forever because it's the home of the Army Medical Department. So even if I left and went to Korea, like you had been to Korea, Heidi, your mother's
Yes.
from Korea, and I was stationed in Korea.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then Valerie, you said your dad was in Korea.
You were
So
stationed there, yeah.
yeah, another connection. So
There you go.
yeah, here is where I live. But I think for me, home is where my family is.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's where, and my family is all over the place. So I call San Antonio home, Philadelphia home, New Jersey home. Because wherever I go to, I feel home. I feel at home. So
How cool is
yeah.
that? I think that's a benefit of also having had that kind of military upbringing and formation, because we do learn to make anywhere we go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have a
Yeah.
choice, right? You're sent there, whether that's for 6 months or 4 years or whatever.
Exactly.
And you just have
Yeah.
to make a home out of it. And that's one of the things I think that helped me also in building connections with people was like, hey, I'm going to be here at this school for a year or 2 or 4 or whatever. Let's make the best of it. And, my mom always said, bloom where you're planted. So,
There you
all right.
go.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Your mom's a smart lady.
She is. I don't like to
Yeah.
let it get to her head, but yeah.
But don't let her watch this podcast.
I know, right?
She's the fourth participant in this podcast.
No, she's
Yeah.
one of my biggest supporters. So I'm always
Oh, that's
grateful for
awesome.
mom's feedback
Yeah.
around any of that. You know what comes to mind for me too is when, at least in my experience, I'm the only girl. I have 3 brothers. And so
Wow.
having a father who's in the military, my mother is a school teacher by trade as well. And so there's a lot of discipline
Yes.
and
Yes.
rigor that goes into a household that's, have parents that have that kind of formation, that kind of education. And I found that I grew up having to sometimes even be responsible for my brothers. Often my parents were busy dealing with a lot of other things. And I'm not the eldest, I'm the second. But my personality, and I feel like some of my habits
Yes.
created that, okay, I'm gonna manage some things here. In fact, we're, when we talk about this trip, we're gonna take some travel time. And I've been like, okay, so who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Who's paying for this? Who's paying? Okay, we got to make sure that I've been like micromanaging the heck out of this thing. And it's not fun for me. I don't enjoy it, but somehow it's like a default.
You just take on that role? Yeah, you just naturally.
Yes. Why?
I don't know. I think deep down you might enjoy it.
You think so?
I think so.
For you to naturally do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I
it
think you're
stresses
in
me
denial.
Okay, I will say, and I want to hear your versions of this if there is one for you. But I shared with my mom because, we love big ideas and trying to think of I like ideation as well. But I had this fear, and I told her recently, I said, I have this fear that we come up with all these ideas, and if they're not executed on the way that I ideated them, I'm going to have to clean up. Like, I'm going to have to now, okay, because we didn't do this first, because we didn't do this next, because this person wasn't informed, I'm going to end up having to do it. So I find that I step into that control mode when I see that other people aren't handling stuff.
Right. Up front, right? You just want to be clear.
Yeah, like, okay, who's doing, okay, are you taking this seriously? Do you know you're tracking all this stuff? And if they're not, I'm like, all right, here's what we're going to do then, because you're not tracking it. Here's how we're going to do it. But it limits me. It limits me from enjoying the experience. And also, it's not a gift of mine to be the most organized person. I can do it because I have a lot of experience, but it's not because it's something I get fulfilled by. And I'm learning, you said my middle name is Joy. I'm trying to use that as a barometer for if this is really for me to do. If I'm not feeling a sense of joy, even peace about it, is usually telling me that, okay, this is not for me to do. But my habit kicks in. Does that happen to y'all? Do you know?
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah. And very similarly, like you said, it's just stepping in and, just assuming, okay, I got it. I'll take it. I'll handle it. Instead of just saying, you know what, I don't have to do this right now. Let other people volunteer. It's okay. So I get it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens to me all the time. But I think I may be like you, Valerie. I don't think I want to do it, but I want the outcome
Yeah.
to be fun, and maybe even a little organized. So when I see, family members or even coworkers, honestly, not pulling their weight, maybe, or not sticking to the schedule or not doing what they agreed to do, then I try not to criticize them, because I think everybody's capabilities and skills and gifts, ability are so different. So I think if I'm stronger in that area, I may, reach in and say, hey, well, why don't you let me help? And sometimes they willingly give me the entire task.
Not just a
Yes.
piece. Yeah.
And sometimes I can tell you with my sisters, I think it's by design. They know that that's what I'll do. So I think they intentionally slow down and wait for me to pick up the slack.
All right.
And, we laugh about it and have fun, but more recently, I'm trying to pull back.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull back and let others take the lead.
That's my season too, Patricia. I'm with you on that, because we have a joke in our family. My husband and our 2 children, they're always like, Mom, Heidi, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Because, you have a vision, like you have high standards. I want a certain way. So now I'm trying to okay, I'm gonna let go a little bit, let other people, do their thing. And so that I can participate and enjoy, activities or, things like that.
Yeah, I'm with you, Heidi, because it ends up being stressful.
Yes.
And I think it's more stressful for me to delegate, I guess. I'm not really delegating, but let others volunteer to take tasks that I know probably upfront maybe I should handle. So sometimes it's easier for me to take those tasks up front that I know that I can do and I can do quickly.
Yes.
So it's easier to just get those done and let other people do the fun things. So sometimes it's best just to let them choose.
Yeah.
Choose what you want to do. This is my small piece right here. And however it turns out, we're all going to have fun.
However it turns out. Yeah.
That's it. I don't know. I feel challenged by that, because I want to do fun stuff too. Like, I want to be, so I'll tell you the best and the worst of where that's shown up for me. We had a family reunion a few years ago where I remember my cousin sent an email with everybody copied on it saying, hey, since we're doing this family reunion, I vote for Valerie to be in charge. And I was just like, and I felt the tug of, I want our family to connect. Yes, we haven't seen each other in so long. Yes, it's super important, but I don't want to, logistics, that stresses me out. It stresses me out. I just don't enjoy. There are other elements that I enjoy, that I'm really good at, that I feel I come alive in, and others that I don't. And so it took me like several weeks probably to respond to that email. Because I was like, someone has to do it. And I know that I could probably do it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. And and I wanted to be authentic to that. So I sent an email back saying, I'm so honored and flattered to be selected as the point person for this thing, but just the thought of it overwhelms me.
Good for you.
And as much as I would love to see everybody, it took me weeks to craft this, by the way, but as much as I would love to see everyone and do whatever it is that we want, I don't think I'm the best person to organize it like that. What I can do is I'm happy to bring everyone together to have a conversation about how we can execute this. And I realized in that moment that actually that is my gift, is to connect people, like I'm doing in this podcast even, like to connect people and create the environment where we can have a conversation. So the best thing we did was I scheduled a Zoom meeting for all these different, and it was like me and my cousins and my brothers.
Yeah.
So our parents were out of it. That generation was going to take a break, and this generation was going to handle it. And so I facilitated a conversation among them. Okay. But we started with, what's our vision for this family reunion? And once we got the vision and everybody contributed to what they thought it would be, like, oh, this would be amazing if we did this. And what if we had this, and this is what we want to get out of it. Then coming up with the what to do and how to do it was easy. So my job was just to keep connecting them and, okay, who's gonna track this? All right. I still did probably a lot more. Because I'm like, you're not going to use a spreadsheet for that?
I know, right. Right. Can we raise the bar a little bit on the vision, guys? Right now. Right.
So that was like, oh, that was hard. But then the best, we went on family trip and we just had like the big the big rocks. We identified this time, this is who's coming. We got transportation and lodging covered. Cool. And then maybe, okay, let's get together. What do we want to get out of it? 1 activity, 2 activities. And we came together and it was so awesome to see my brother step into, hey, how about I do this? Or, hey, y'all feel like doing this tonight? Yeah, let's go do that. And we mobilized like a squad of people. We had so many people that we had to manage, kids and, elderly. We had all of it, but everyone stepped up. And that was like the best feeling, that I didn't have to do everything. I just had to create the environment and bring people together. And
wow,
no stress, I guess Valerie's gonna take care of it. None of that. And I just, I want more of that in my life. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, to me, that sounds like the most important role.
What do you mean?
What you did, create the environment, bring people together.
Can you say that again for my brothers, please?
Yeah, that's the most important. I mean, you did the Zoom meeting, bring everybody. I'm creating this environment. Let's all come together.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't do that, then what would have happened?
Maybe. What about you guys? What would be at your best? How are you showing up?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking about, as you were talking about, what you do best and what you enjoy most, and you want to have fun. So I like the laughter. Yeah. I just really enjoyed laughing and fun activities and even impromptu activities. So I like to at least have, like you said, a vision, a format, but when it gets to the event, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have family that is just crazy. When you bring both sides together, the heck with the agenda.
Really?
They're going to get up and do their thing and create. So I try to bring order to the chaos while we're in the midst of it. Still making it fun, but letting everybody have a chance to participate. Because I have some family members that will take over the event just with comedy skits. So, you kind of want everybody to participate. So I may get up and call out some names, or acknowledge some seniors, or give everybody a chance to speak, or what do you think about that? And just so everybody could feel, they participated rather than just being spectators.
Right.
So I think that's the piece I enjoy. I like bringing it together, but while we're at the event, just kind of keeping things moving, because you get the lull and things slow down, and, you might need some music or something to just keep people dancing and engaged.
You're the MC.
Yeah, I like that.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
right.
I like that piece. Yeah.
PBMC. Yeah. All right. What about you, Heidi?
I really enjoy it. This is so fun because I'm reflecting back, it's taking me even back to my childhood. I really like the one-on-one connections and, having those deep conversations. I always laugh because I don't like chit chat. I'm always like, tell me your deepest hopes and desires. I like to go deep. I want to like connect with people. And at the same time, I love just what you're doing here, like bringing different people together and seeing how they can connect. And then I also believe for bigger events, it's, just understanding what is the vision, the creative process, having fun, trying to do different things. But what really drives me, especially at this point in life, is, these deep connections and hearing people's stories and the one-on-one type of relationship building that really it feels good. Yeah,
the
getting-
relationship builder.
Wow, the
Yeah, I love
relationship
it.
builder.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Heidi, I'm curious about culturally, how does your American, Black American side and your Korean side, how do they express themselves in how you show up and the kind of things that you, yeah.
That's wonderful. No one's ever asked me that question. And it's funny. So just to make Patricia laugh, since she likes to laugh, it's interesting because my parents, when they got married, in the 70s, my father is the type of person, his experience was really coming through like the Great Migration. So he was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and then his family eventually moved to Detroit, right? So, Midwest, to seek other opportunities. So he was really involved and faced a lot of challenges and racism in Alabama, and then also in Detroit. And then when he went to serve in the military, for him, it was about, seeing the world, getting access to different opportunities he wasn't able to see. And so then my mother, I think she kind of put this rebel streak in me, first of all, to marry a Black man, and then to like start over and then come to the United States. So I think this pursuit of, difference and seeing beauty in difference, and always, checking in on people who may be kind of excluded, has always shown up for me. But the funny part of it is, a lot of times I will say to my mother that she's like the Blackest person I know.
Your Korean mother's the Blackest person you know.
Because she just, and I think this was so brave of her, because she always told me, which is interesting because I have a very strong, I think, Asian features. So people will think either I'm Hawaiian or Filipino, but she's always told me, in America, you're Black, you are Black. And she poured that into me in a way that really helped me be very confident in my identity. And so that's something that I will always be grateful for her. And, I attribute to her, because I had a lot of confidence in who I am and my culture, and still being able to show up in a lot of different spaces, which I can attribute to the military experience. So that's, they have just poured into me and my identity and who I am culturally. And I think it's so ironic that it's my Korean mother who helped me embrace who I am as a Black woman. So that's something that's so unique, but has been a major gift for me, particularly, which is interesting because both of them were like ostracized from their families because they married outside of their race. So it was really like us against the world when I grew up.
Yeah.
But that was really, I think, what centered me. I never felt like we didn't have love in the home, like growing up. So that was, definitely has grounded me and influenced me now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. You have an awesome mom too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really special. She is.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your mom like, Patricia?
Yeah, I was about to ask you
Well,
that.
it's interesting. You guys asked. So for me, growing up in Philadelphia and in the projects of Philadelphia, so you can imagine, it was, I don't want to say it was difficult. I didn't realize how difficult it was until I was removed from that environment, So I think my mom was a realist, and kind of saw the world for what it was, and we lived in a time of a lot of racism, socioeconomic status, discrimination, and like you said, Heidi, being excluded. And it was challenging because my mom was manic depressant or bipolar. So as the second oldest child, I had a lot of responsibility for my younger siblings. So like you said, my mom poured all of her love and every gift into us that she knew how to give, because she wanted us to be able to survive in the world, after her. Because I think she died in her early 40s, and she knew she was not long for the world. So I think she spent a lot of time making me a trailblazer. So I was the first who had to integrate a school that was primarily white, and you go there and you tell them your mother sent you, you belong. And they initially did not want me to go to the school. So, you know, I just have so many fond memories of her and how she shaped me to be a leader. You know, I guess going into the military was not foreign to me, although there were many other African-American, Black females who were very uncomfortable, but I had already been exposed to white environments, primarily white environments, because my mother pushed me into the environment. So just a quick funny story. I think about, I was going to a school, and I'll just go ahead and name it. What the heck? The truth is the truth. It was a McCall Elementary School, and it was an international school, but not many Blacks went, at least not Blacks from my neighborhood. And I lived in the district.
Yeah.
So they denied me admission, but my mother said, you go anyway. So I went, and here I am in the 7th grade. So I think I was 12. It was a middle school. So I went, and they pulled me out of the class right away and said, you're not supposed to be here, go to the office. So I went to the office, and they said, you have to go home. And I said, my mom told me to tell you that if I have to go home, she needs a letter stating why I can't go to this school, so she can take it to the school district, to the superintendent of schools. So I can't leave without the letter. Let me tell you, my mom was hardcore, and she's like, you go there, and I want in writing why. So here I am, 12, demanding that I'm going to stay, and I need a letter.
Yeah.
So guess what they did? They gave me a homeroom assignment.
Yeah, they weren't ready. They didn't want that fight. They didn't want that fight.
So I stayed, and then it opened doors for others in my community to attend that school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my sisters went, you know, we all went to McCall Elementary, but prior to that, and there were people who did not live in the school district attending the school, but, you know, they were middle class or higher socioeconomic statuses. But I really think it was where we lived in the projects and the financial, just poor, you know? So that's how I always remember my mom, you know, just making you be a trailblazer and not accepting no at face value. You know, you belong there, and don't let anybody tell you no, and you walk away, you know, without a fight, especially if you know you're right. You know, don't do anything crazy and demand to be somewhere if you know you shouldn't be there, or you have something that you did that would keep you out. But if you should be there and you were legally within your right, then you go ahead and do it tactfully.
Yes.
You know, and she didn't tell me to be mean. She just said, you just ask for the letter. So
and don't come home without one.
Don't come home without the letter.
Yeah.
So
wow, brilliant.
Yeah.
Since you were so, you know, pivotal in your family, especially, you know, with your siblings, how did you reconcile kind of, you know, leaving them, right? And, you know, going to serve in military?
Now, Heidi, why are you and Valerie asking me these?
I told you I was going to go deep. You know, I told you.
I just invite y'all. I don't tell you what to talk about.
Well, you know, I still don't think I've reconciled it.
Yeah.
I still think that's a challenge for me because when I went in ROTC, I was a reservist. So I was not going on active duty. So when I got to Fort Sam, to the officer basic course, there was an opportunity to go on active duty. So I said, okay, I'm going to take it. I can bring my siblings with me. My mom was deceased by then, and my dad was ill.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So I thought that I could get a stateside assignment. So the other 2 members on the board, or 2 candidates, did not want overseas. They wanted to stay in the States, but the Army sent me to Germany.
Oh, man.
So it's still challenging for me, even though it's been many years. I think about that situation and often wonder, could I have said no? But, at that time I was young,
Yeah.
went in the army. I ended up bringing my brother, my youngest brother, and my oldest brother took the two middle siblings when my dad passed. So
How
we
old were
made it
they?
work. It was challenging, but it just made everything else, other challenges that came my way, very easy. So when other people in the army complaining and fussing and this is hard, I'm like, what are y'all talking about? This is a piece of cake.
You have no idea, right?
We have no idea. Why are you complaining about this stuff? Just do it and make it happen. It's easy,
Right.
So I appreciate that part of it, but still have some
Yeah.
regret sometimes.
I'm not sure if I understood something you said, Patricia. So you're saying that it's difficult for you to reconcile having gone overseas while your family needed you in Philly. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That's really
okay.
Go ahead.
And what age were your siblings at the time?
Okay, so at the time I went, I was 21. So I had 3 siblings younger than me. So there was one 17, 16, and my youngest brother was maybe 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I had an older brother, but he had recently gotten married. And you know how the ladies, women to me are just more nurturing. So I was kind of filling the nurturing void and working and bringing money to the household. So to leave so suddenly, if I had 6 months, maybe I could have made it work, but I was still in the course when I got selected for active duty, and I had 7 days to be in Germany. So I had to go home and tell my family, I'm leaving. So they're like, what? My dad's like, are you serious? Where are you going? So I got married too. My husband's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Where are you going? So I got married and left. And
in 7 days you got married? Okay.
7 days I got married, but then I have to look at the blessing in all of it because I had a paycheck. A fairly good paycheck. I didn't need all of that in Germany, so I could send it home to my family. Yeah, so at least they still got the financial support, and you can't go home as much when you're overseas. But so it's 3 years, and then I was able to come back, with my family, and they seemed to be fine. So it was mostly me, because my brother stepped in and took care of the younger siblings, but that was not the plan. But unexpected circumstances often present themselves. We just have to find ways to do what's best.
Incredible.
In that situation at that time. Yeah. So I told you that was a tough question for me.
Yeah.
Yes, it was tough.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So
now you can ask her a tough question, Patricia. You earned it.
Well, I do have a tough question for Heidi. So Heidi, have you experienced any racism or discrimination because of being of mixed race?
Yeah, and I have, and I've witnessed it actually, like through my mother, and obviously like from myself. So I was sharing this with Valerie just earlier today. It's interesting because my mother, with her immigrant experience, I was able to kind of watch how people would treat her, because many times people did not associate us as a one unit because I look different, and she's Korean. So there are stories. I remember when I was about 10, we were at the post exchange, and her English, is not the best because it's not her first language.
Right.
And she was trying to ask the cashier a question, and the person was really rude, like, oh, you're wasting my time. You need to learn how to speak English. And so here I come up like, don't you talk to my mother like that? Like you address me and she knows what you're saying. And so there was a lot of this kind of, me trying to, I think that's where the taking care of the other is coming from.
Yeah.
And then for me, of course, I mean, even in corporate America, in many ways where, I'm not Black enough, Or the interesting the access that I have is because of the way that I look, I've had a lot of opportunities to have a seat at the table where I am either the only woman or the only Black woman, or they may see a person of color and they say all kinds of stuff because they may not think initially that I am Black. And so you hear things that, like, the truth that comes out.
Yes.
And there's tons of stories too about, people, taking away opportunities. And I've heard it, stories from my father where a senior officer told him that, I'm not going to promote you because you're a Black man. And oh, by the way, you married a Korean woman. So just bold.
It's bold. It's
Yeah,
making a statement. Yeah.
A lot of those stories, fuel me to continue to, break barriers and also continue to lift our community up in any way that I can to create more opportunities and access.
Wow. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are your parents still living, Heidi?
They are. Yes.
They are. Yeah. What's your relationship like with them now?
Oh, it's wonderful. And, we've had, ups and downs, of course, but it's wonderful now so I'm 45, like playing in this role now that's transitioning where I'm a child still, but now trying to take care of them more. And it's just wonderful to be able to have those type of conversations where, it's full of laughter. It's more of a friendship. So I'm really grateful. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah,
And your Korean, how do you express your Korean heritage, if at all?
It's interesting. That is a regret that I have, because when my mother married my father, I've never met my Korean family. And so my mother never went back because they pretty much disowned her. Yeah. So for me, one thing that's interesting too is, I have a great appreciation for the culture, but my mother told me, because I think she was worried about herself, like kind of being, integrated in society. She didn't teach me Korean because she wanted to make sure my English was, perfect. So English was my first language, but when I was really young, she would speak Korean to me, but then didn't continue with it. So that's probably one of my biggest regrets, is not picking up that language. I tried it in college, but just wasn't exposed to it enough to keep it up. So I can read it, but I have no idea what I'm saying, so it's just,
I can read it, but I have no idea.
I know I can read the characters, but I'm like, I don't know what I said.
That means.
So I think for me, it's, still trying to, ask my mom to tell stories, passing that on to my children. So yeah.
That's interesting, Heidi, what you said about the language.
Yeah.
So when I was in Korea, they have the Korean Army.
Yeah.
And those who are come from wealthy families, they have, well, all of them, I guess, have to do some service in the military, but the more wealthier ones, they were able to come and serve with the Army, like for a year or two to get
the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and they were with us. They call them Korean augmentees to the U.S. Army or something. So we call them Katusas. So I had a Katusa who worked for me, and he was so awesome. And I told him I wanted to learn Korean, and he said Hangul.
Oh yeah, Hangul. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Hangul. So I said, okay. So he went and bought me this whole language kit.
Oh wow.
And he wanted me to commit to my lunchtime to learning the language. So I did it a couple times, but he made sure he emphasized to me that before I could learn the language, I had to know the history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he said, you have to understand the history before learning the language. So he was very proud of the history. And so he was trying to get me to understand that. And then he got frustrated. And so did I, because I couldn't commit to every day. I was like,
you don't want this bad enough, Patricia. Don't waste your time.
Like, I'm sorry, I can't do every day. And he says, you're no more my student.
What?
But he gave me the kit. He said, please take this kit as a gift.
No, that's
so when you were talking about the language and understanding it, he was very passionate about it.
Mhm.
And you wanted me to understand that history before I learned the language, because they were connected.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm.
So yeah. So I tried to stay in touch with him over the years and just kind of lost touch, but I love the culture.
Mhm. You still have the
Yeah.
kit, Patricia? You still have that kit somewhere? That language kit?
You know what? I'll look for that, Heidi.
It's probably at your mom's house.
Yeah, it probably
It's in
is.
Jersey. That
I
storage
will-
unit.
Yeah, it's probably in the storage unit. Yeah, you're right. So, but I will look, Heidi. I will make an effort.
All right, Heidi, you looking for a little extra support? What are you?
I might need to, yeah, we might need to pick it up. Yeah.
Well, you know, Heidi, you probably have to go buy a cassette tape, because I think they were all
Oh, were they all cassette tape? Oh, back then, I know you had to put in tape number 10 and tape number.
they were all cassette tapes. So I don't know, you know, they may have melted or wilted or something by now.
If you're really serious though, Heidi, there's a wonderful language system called Pimsleur. Have you heard of Pimsleur?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's great because it does help with conversational level. I've done it for Italian and German and Arabic. And
Wow.
been
You
cool.
speak all those languages?
No. But before I went to Italy back in the day, I wanted to make sure, I speak Spanish fluently, but I wanted to make sure that my Italian, I could at least, fend for myself. I was traveling alone. So I did that. And then German, I don't know, I've always had this fascination with the German language. I don't even know why. I mean, I spent a couple, we weren't stationed there, at least I wasn't with my father. He was on his own. But when I was traveling with that organization, we spent a couple of months in Germany, and we lived with host families. And so every host family I lived in, a lot of my German host families did not speak English very well or very confidently. And so I found myself having to use, ich suche Geschenke für 2 Jungen, like I'm looking for gifts for little kids.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like
I
I'm in trouble. I feel like I'm in trouble now. I don't know what you just said, but I just feel like I'm in trouble or something like that.
and I just found it fascinating. And in Arabic, I was dating this guy that was Egyptian. And so I wanted to learn, I mean, at least I can say, Ana me bekalim shi Arabi, which is, I don't speak Arabic.
I don't
So I
speak
figured
Arabic.
at the very least, I should be able to say that in every language.
Wow.
Not every language, but at least the ones that
But at least in the
yeah.
ones that, you
exposed
picked up
to.
on.
But Pimsleur is a great system for that because it does at least, and in this eats, like I can recall that phrase.
Wow.
Fun on some of the stuff that I learned, but
Yeah, I'll check that out too, because I've been trying to, become more Spanish speaking. I can only do a little bit,
un poquito
but
de
I really,
español.
yeah, el pequeño.
Un
or poquito. Okay. So I would really like to do that. So my youngest son is fluent
Oh,
in
good.
Spanish, and he told me to watch Dora the Explorer. He said, "Mom, just watch Dora the Explorer. It's
Okay.
conversational Spanish, and you'll pick it up." So
You will.
interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Go to restaurants and supermarkets and you'll be able to practice.
Practice it.
Yeah, that's what I need to do. Yeah. So.
This has been a fun conversation. Man, we touched all kinds of stuff. I'm curious about, compared to where we started and where we are now, what has been your experience, after having all these threads that we've kind of been pulling on?
I want to fly down to Texas and meet Patricia in person.
No, I'm coming your way.
Come on. We'll do 2 trips. Yeah.
Okay, how about that? I'll come your way, you come my way.
Sounds
There you
good.
go.
Let's do it.
To come back to the DC area.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. And you're always welcome here.
Thank you.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. I think the experience has been awesome. I think Heidi, like you said, looking forward to getting to know, more about you, seeing the things that we have in common. And it's just refreshing to me to have an opportunity to speak with women who are authentic.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Who are not afraid to share who they are, and just kind of sharing your truth.
Yeah.
I mean, just to help others or for connection purposes.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for me to always have those types of relationships you know, and when you find them, you know, I think you have to cherish them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that deeply because, you know, there's no like, I need this, you need that, right? It's just the natural, just curiosity and care for another person, just getting to know them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What-
Yes.
This is really fascinating for me because I do find that is, I don't mean to say this in an arrogant way, but I find that that's quite common. Maybe because of my role as a coach and what I tend to, the kind of relationships or conversations that I'm in, you know, I'm privy to, but I'm curious about what it is that creates that. What creates the experience of authentic connection that you guys have just described? Or what prevents it, if that's easier to answer?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it is your intention, you know, Valerie, like you said, for us, if there was no expectation, it's just show up and be curious and get to know someone. That I think really framed it beautifully. And it maybe perhaps you know us enough that that way of showing up is going to be maybe natural for us.
Yeah. And no judgment.
Yeah.
You know, just no judgment, and it feels like a safe, you know, psychologically.
Yes.
Psychologically safe. Yeah.
Yeah, that I could just share who I am, share the stories with you guys, and feel that you wouldn't judge me for it. It wouldn't change, you know, the relationships that, you know, we're nurturing. Yeah. So it's difficult to find that. And I saw it in Valerie right away. I mean, it was just something about you. I don't want to keep going back to you, Valerie, but when I met you,
I receive it.
Yeah, because if you think about it, when I met you, Valerie, how many Black women were at that conference?
I think we were the only two.
Yep. Yeah.
So
we were not the only two women of color, but we were the only two Black women.
Exactly.
I think.
So,
well, maybe there are others that I didn't see, but it was not like, it wasn't easy to find us.
It wasn't easy. So, you know, when we think even about belonging,
Yeah,
you know, and feeling inclusive, we naturally will just kind of migrate to someone who is similar to us. But it was more than that, because when I went to meet you and you started talking, I was like, wow, I feel a connection. This lady's authentic. She's transparent. She has something that I could really just learn from her and improve my life. So I went back to the agenda and I said, okay, let me really read what she's going to present.
Now I'm going to stay and listen. Yeah, so, I got that from you too. I think in one thing, somebody told me this a long time ago that might be helpful. I didn't realize this, and I'm not saying this is exclusive to me, but I remember he and I were having a conversation. There's this older gentleman, and we were talking, and I asked him a couple questions. It was like a passing conversation. We weren't having a meal or anything. We were just in passing in the hallway somewhere, and I asked him a couple questions, and he started sharing, and he said, I don't usually speak this way, he said. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't share this much about what I'm thinking or feeling or whatever it was that we were talking about. And I was like, oh, okay. Or you don't have to. I'm like, I'm not trying to force you to do something you're uncomfortable. And he said, no. But there's something about the way you listen to me that compels me to say things that I'm not used to saying.
Yeah.
And that was the first time, and this is not that long ago, maybe about 8 years ago, I remember I was kind of confounded by that statement. I'm like, I'm just asking questions. I don't understand. But we didn't go in that much deeper. But I think what he was saying and what I've explored over time, now that I have some language for it, you know, you're saying that psychological safety. But, you know, I have an expectation that every interaction I'm going to learn. Like, I feel like interactions are sacred.
Yes.
You know,
they
like
really
there's
are.
something sacred about it. And I don't even know where that comes from, but I have this intention that I'm going to be in the presence of some other human being that I'm going to learn something from. If not from you directly, I'm going to learn something about myself.
Right.
And the conditioning, I think, of living in different host families over a series of years, I didn't know whose family I was going to be put into, what languages they spoke or not, how comfortable they would be, if they were quiet, if they were loud, if they were, social, if they were reserved. Like I had no idea. And I just kind of had to go and observe and see, okay, how can I make this enjoyable for me and for them? And not judging, because there were plenty of places where I was uncomfortable because I didn't understand, or like, oh, we don't do that, or we don't eat this, or oh, this is kind of this, or this is kind of that. I had plenty of judgments, but I think over time it was like, my judgments are really irrelevant if I want to have a nice time in these 3-4 days I'm with this family, if I want to learn anything. So yeah, fascinating. Thank you for sharing that
attitude. Because one thing about you that really, I guess, resonated with me is I was telling you something and I don't remember what I was telling you, and you said, well, why? And I was like, why? I don't know. I just had not. I'm like, why do I want to do this? Why do you want to get in the DEI space or something? Why? So it really made me go back and think like, wow, that was a deep question, and it was just why. So it was like, you wanted to hear me. You wanted to hear my explanation, and you gave me a voice. And made me think deeper about, well, why really do you want to do this? What's your purpose? What's the focus? So I was like, that's somebody I need to stay connected with.
That's a great reflection, because again, Valerie, what you do so well is, I know I feel seen when I'm around you, and maybe it is through the questioning, but you are locked in, right? Whenever you're with people, and that's a gift that we don't get in this crazy world that we're in, because it's always like either do, go, or just quickly get through it.
Yeah.
But being able to slow down enough and really connect and go deep is such a gift, and so rare these days.
Yes.
And just that curiosity of asking the why question, like, who, me? You want to know? You don't get that a lot. Like, oh, you really want to know? Okay. Like, I don't even know the answer myself, but now, you're trading this currency of care and curiosity that you continue to offer. And that's rare, unfortunately.
It really is.
I get what you're saying, because I think what happens to me is I tend to preload that with people, because I don't always expect that people will ask the questions that I would ask, I don't always get the why question necessarily. And so I usually preload that with people. Very seldom do I allow space for someone to ask me, why are you doing this podcast? I usually start like, here's why I'm doing this.
Here's why I'm doing this podcast.
Right? Or, you know what I'm saying? So and that's, I wonder, I'm sorry, I'm like having a moment here to reflect now, because I'm thinking, does that contribute, or does it inhibit people from exploring for themselves what they want to explore? Like, how much do I preempt by sharing, and how does that influence how deep it goes versus how much space should I provide? You know what I mean?
No, for me, I thought it was very helpful for you to share why you created the podcast.
I'm just saying in general, that's like one
just
example.
In general?
I think in general, like, asking about the why DEI, or any like why responsibility and why your Korean heritage, like those kind of questions. I find that if I'm flipping the camera this way, I don't always expect that people will be as curious as I am. And so I share more about my context and my why in a conversation, so they understand me and see me, versus hoping and expecting. And I wonder if they care, if they want to know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it does make sense, but I wonder why you behave that way.
I know. Why do I behave that way?
Why do you behave? Why do you feel that you have to have that control? Because people may not. I know that's what you said, but I'm just like, why, Valerie? Why?
That's all the time we have to.
No. Come back, Valerie.
Thank you so much for being a guest. Not playing.
Well, you know what comes up for me is this really nice way of you giving an invitation through how you model, like say, okay, I would like for you to go deeper, but then you give us the permission to go deeper. Like we're still in choice. Like I don't have to go deep if I don't want to, but I think doing both the invitation and permission kind of helps people along if they want to.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a very good
Thank
point,
you,
Heidi. And
Heidi.
now,
It's not
Oh.
control.
oh, well, I will tell you what, though, I was going to say something positive.
It is.
Because you're sharing your why up front makes others feel comfortable sharing theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. So you're modeling what you would like from someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is
Isn't
awesome.
that what I said?
Okay.
Okay. No, but no, this is really fascinating because I have noticed that there's this instinct that I have. I think part of it is yes, to model to make it safe. Look, I'm willing to share this much. I'm willing to listen to this much. If you're down for it, let's go. Right. But I do find, I think in the least generous way I can say it is that I may underestimate a person's curiosity, right? By not just giving the space for people to ask what they want to know. Right. So I wonder, being a little bit more mysterious, I guess, not because I'm trying to hide, but more in create the invitation without the expectation.
Well, I mean, you could practice that, but the behavior you model certainly worked for me and Heidi. So
it sure does.
So it's up to you.
Yeah.
What are you
maybe
concerned about? I'm sorry, Patricia.
What am I concerned about?
Are you concerned that you're like limiting someone? Or
I don't think I'm limiting, but I would love for someone to be as curious about me as I am about them. Right. But not to be the one to drive that curiosity. Yeah. So I think that's probably that control piece. I'm like, all right, so I'd love to just, and not to just, but to be in a space where I don't have to feel like I need to drive the conversation to the depth, where someone else will drive it to the depth. Some people do in my life for sure.
Yes.
So that not taking anything away from those relationships and friendships I have,
of
that
course.
quality. But in my meeting of strangers, oftentimes I find that I tend to be the one that drives that depth. And I wonder what would happen if I didn't. Would I walk away? Would that be a fulfilling interaction for me? If I didn't ask those questions, because I'm like this even in a Lyft, in an Uber, like, this is Valerie all day, at the supermarket.
Warning all Lyft and Uber drivers.
Well, I have a question for Valerie.
What?
Does every interaction have to be fulfilling for you?
Not every, but because I have a lot of them, of course, but not everyone. But if there's something that kind of makes me go, I like for the itch to be scratched.
Yeah.
Like, so if I notice, something simple like a grocery store cashier has sleeved tattoos, right? So I'm like, that's kind of interesting. What tattoo do you like best? Ask that question. Like I feel like compelled to, like, anytime I go, it's always like it follows up with I want to ask something. Sometimes I try to figure it out on my own if I'm seeing them walk by or something.
Yeah.
But you don't
see that your curiosity really is a source of encouragement for others, because even the way you phrase the question, which tattoo do you like best? That gave them a chance to tell you all about their tattoos and maybe think about the one they like best. And who knows, they may get negative comments about the tattoos, but you said, which one do you like best? Meaning that all of them are good, but what's your favorite? So that this sparks interesting conversation, and you give them a voice.
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
I get that piece. I guess what I'm like secretly in my head going, how do I inspire people to be as curious about not just me, but about everything.
It's everything.
Yeah. I mean, I can create the opportunities like this, right?
Yeah,
I can have a forum where, hey,
Yeah.
it's okay to be curious. Be curious, please. And there are other places in life where, like, man, I wish you would ask, I wish my brothers asked my dad some of the questions that I've been able to ask. I wish that my nieces and nephews asked their parents questions that I asked them, that kind of stuff.
That's interesting, because curiosity, I mean, does, lead to inclusivity.
It does.
You know?
Right.
But you guys have been curious, actually, and I appreciate that. I did set the intention before we started that I didn't want to be the one driving, Oprah Winfrey, Barbara Walter style rapid fire questions. And so I appreciate that. And it does feel good to be included in the conversation versus driving it.
Yeah.
That's my
You made me feel very comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad to have had this opportunity, to share and to be curious and to meet Heidi.
Yes.
And we're all gonna hang out. I mean, I wasn't included in the invitation to fly to DC.
Oh, that's
to
right.
San Antonio.
You're included.
So I'm just assuming and inviting myself.
You're included. That was assumed. I think I just need to come down to Texas.
That's exactly right. You're included.
Texas.
So we have to plan a get together.
Yes.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
I knew there's something here. It would be, even though I'm not dressed in the right colors, but I think that
that's all right. That's all right. You're neutral.
I'm neutral. Yes, I am neutral. These are neutral colors. I'm so grateful to the two of you for sharing so openly and authentically in this short span of time that I think really got a chance to see some nuggets, right, of who you all are as women in the world, as women of color, as mothers, as sisters, as parents, as all kinds of things. And and I don't take for granted also your interest in each other or in me, and being able to also explore some of these like very esoteric topics sometimes about what makes people curious and control and responsibility and all these things. So thank you for that. It's been a real treat.
Same here. I'm grateful.
So yes.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Yeah.
Yay. Any final words for each other or for the audience? Specifically, actually, I'm gonna ask you if there's anything you want to share to those that have been listening and engaging in as an audience in this conversation. What would you want to share with them, or what questions do you think they should be asking, or what would you invite them to do as a result of this conversation?
I think I would invite the audience, like we've been talking these last few minutes, to be curious.
Yeah.
And to not be afraid of new relationships, and just kind of step out, take a risk, meet someone, that you don't normally hang around with, explore new cultures, and just take advantage of the opportunity to connect, because sometimes we don't connect because we judge people by what they may look like, or we may have a fear of how they're going to receive us or not receive us. And I just say, take the risk to establish connections and to nurture the relationships, you have right now with family and friends.
Beautiful.
Cheers. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to follow up on that. Goodness. No, that was good. I think if I could add anything, one thing that's coming up for me is, in life, we kind of plan our world and our days around like these big events, right? Like I got to get ready for this big meeting or, milestones. But I think today has taught me that, life really happens in the moments, like the small moments. So how can you really be present in those moments, particularly with people you just pass in the hallway or pass in the store, so that you can slow down enough to be present and to connect and almost optimize a moment that is completely unexpected. And my son used this term the other day when, as our family, we were getting ready to kind of like wind down for the week, but we were like, you know what, let's just try something different. Let's just go for a walk and, try this new area out. And we came home and he goes, wow, that was a journey of chance. And it was so much fun. I was like, oh, look at you.
Wow,
Look at you. And so how can you live more in the moment, and create more of those moments by asking Valerie questions? And then, no, but seriously, how can you, be curious and just kind of optimize your day by just appreciating those small moments?
Now that was deep, Heidi.
That was deep.
That was deep.
Was that deep? Because I was following you. I was trying to follow you.
No, that was deep.
Both of you brought the depth.
Yeah.
There's no lack of depth in either of these these sentences, but that optimizing unexpected moments.
Yeah, exactly. That was deep.
Yeah, he's an old soul. He's special. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there you go, audience. You heard it here. Go out there, be curious. Don't be afraid of new interactions with people. Take a chance and optimize for those opportunities. Heidi, Patricia, you have been lovely guests. Thank you. Thank you. For your sharing.
And you've been a wonderful participant.
Yes.
I know, participant. Yay!
Okay, we got to plan our next trip. I'll come down to Texas.
We'll be on it. We'll stay for a second and we'll chat a little bit. But for the audience, I'm going to release you all to go optimize, optimize these opportunities to connect with other people. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Not Quite Strangers. Looking forward to seeing you at our next episode. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been listening to the podcast Not Quite Strangers. Be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite video or podcast platform. And for more information and content, go to notquitestrangers.com. See you next time.